Today's Tech Talk is going to be about the George L. Stone method. So we're going to talk about George Stone today. And George Stone, if you don't know, was the author of Stick Control, and he was the instructor of Joe Morello. He was Joe's second teacher. Joe had his first teacher was Joe Sefcik from the Boston area, and then Joe, after a while, Joe Sefcik sent him to George Stone, and he spent a lot of time with George Stone, and actually inspired George Stone to write the Accents and Rebounds book. And then after George died, Joe wrote two Master Study volumes, which continued the process that George began with Stick Control and evolved into Accents and Rebounds, and then blossomed into Master Studies 1, and then Master Studies 2 followed that. And then we lost Joe. So that's where this information comes from. I don't know how much of this information actually came directly from George and how much of it was contributed to by Joe, because as you know, I mean, we all study with teachers that inspire us, and as we go through our life, practicing the things that they taught us, we learn our own lessons along the way and add them to whatever it is we got from our teachers. So it always comes out a little bit different at the other end. And at this time, there's two other ends. The translation is coming from George to Joe, and then from Joe to me. And I'm giving, and then I have my own stuff that I've added to this as well. But I'm going to try to just first present just what I think is Stone's isolated stuff. So, but the overview that I get from Joe that ultimately is it's physically a system of masses: the mass of your arm, and the mass of your hands, and the mass of your fingers, and those are the three things that we learn to use. And there's three levels. There's a high level, and a medium level, and a low level that we learn to practice within. Okay, but that's just the parameters of it. The most basic thing that George did was lift the stick at the start. Most people, if they play a stroke, they play it like this. And there's some techniques where they actually practice this. And when you play fast enough, it gets to look like that after a while, but that's not really what George did. What George did was he started at the top of the stroke, and then returned it back to the top of the stroke again. And then the purpose of this was to be in place to play the stroke right at the beginning, so you're always ready. And the return, and it takes a lot less energy to create the stroke, because you only have to worry about going down. The back portion is going to be taken care of by the rebound. And you get into the habit of letting the stick come back. And he called this a free stroke, because I would imagine because there's no interference in the stroke. It starts and stops in the same place. I'm not dropping any frames here, guys, so if you're having any trouble locally, just reboot your application or your page or your computer if necessary. So you call that the free stroke. And the position he called full. So the start position is the full start position, and the stroke resolution is free. And that's one of two types of strokes. And his whole object with stick control is to try to get both hands to sound exactly the same. Same volume, same tonality. That's if you have pitch sticks. But basically, that's what the free stroke looks like. And then he defines other levels from that. So this is your highest level because your wrist is really flexed as high as it can go. But you could start from a lower position. And it's still a free stroke because you're not interfering with the stroke and you're letting it come back to where it started from. But it's no longer in the full position, it's now in a half position. So this is a free stroke at the half position. And to see the result of this is a big reduction in the amount of energy. And then he goes even further and says, you can even go, can you half that down? He calls that a half stroke. It's actually less than half. And then he halves that, calls it a quarter, and you're down here now. And it's still the same thing. And then we have a very soft volume. So we have the loud, we have the medium, we have the very soft. For your waist hook. If you want an accent, those are the three levels. Your accent level, your normal half stroke level, and your grace note level. And those are your three dynamic levels. And after you learned that, how to control the levels, so you could play the stick control book up here. Down here. Or down here. It's a little sloppy, but you get the idea. And what we start up here. This is the easiest place to start. As the longest stroke is the easiest thing to feel physically. We get the most response from the rebound, so that we can learn how it feels to let the rebound happen and how to control it without interfering with it. And You're probably asking yourself, well, that's all very nice, but how do you get in and out of the levels so nicely? You know, normally, I mean, when you change, there's an arc of dynamics here to go through, and to really get clean accents, you got to hit the same level on the accent every time. Otherwise, the volume is going to be different on the accents. Same thing with the taps. You want nice even taps, so you want them all the same level. So they have to be all the. So there has to be a lot of discipline about being able to control the sticks and place them in the right place and at the right time. And so there's another kind of stroke that he invented called the control stroke. And there's two kinds of those. You need two kinds of control strokes. You know, so when you're playing at the full level, you can't go up any further. So there's only one direction to go, which is down. So we have a down control stroke, and all that means is that instead of letting it happen freely, we control it and prevent it from going up any further. So we change the level very quickly. On the return, now I'm ready to play soft on the next note. I'm not going to get ready before I need to play the note. I'm going to get ready as soon as I finish playing the last note that I need to play before I need to change my dynamic. And then I'm going to change my level with the control stroke. So if I've been playing loud, I can change the level without changing the sound, because the start of the stroke, the level, is going to determine the volume or the energy or the speed. You know. So you don't hear the change in level, you just see it, and then you hear it the next time you play the stroke. And then there's the opposite of that. I want to go up, and that's the same thing. You don't hear a difference in the stroke, you just see it change its level, and then the next stroke is different. So to play three fulls and then a down, then three halves and then an up, and three fulls and a down, and three. That's what we're going to do, okay? Full, 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 down, half, 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 up. And I don't need to use any kind of musculature. I mean, all I'm doing is throwing my normal full stroke that I learned to do up here, and roll my normal half stroke that I down here. Let's go up and down. So, but I'm practicing this control up and down, in and out of levels. And we start that with the triplet accent. This is the first example that's presented, which is okay. So I have to start with an accent position on my right hand and a tap, and a half stroke position on the left hand. So I'm going to accent with a downstroke, and then I'm going to tap with an upstroke, and then I'm going to tap cleanly, and then I'm going to hit another down, and then I'm going to up, and then I'm going to tap, and I'm going to go down, I'm going to up, and I'm going to tap, down, up, tap, down, up, tap, down, up, tap, down, up, tap. Paradiddle is the next example that's presented, and there's an extra note in there instead of 3 out 4, so you have a diddle at the end, and but it's pretty much the same thing. So you got 2 taps instead of 1. So it's down and then up and then tap and a tap and then a down down, and an up, and a tap, and a tap, and a tap. Up, and a tap, and a tap, and a down, and an up, and a tap, and a tap, and down. Up, tap, 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 up, tap, 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 up, up. And that's using the controls to get in and out. This is all wrist. It's all wrist. It's all either full stroke wrist or half stroke wrist. Or it's, you start getting at the fingers when you get that close. When you start using the quarter strokes, it really is the world of the fingers. But the quarter strokes we don't deal with for a long time. First we deal with the full strokes, we get our wrist going, and then we deal with the half strokes and learn to control and accelerate, and then we learn to control the control strokes to learn how to get in and out and do dynamics. And then we start approaching the other parts of the body, and we start talking about the arms and fingers last. I mean, basically, fingers are icing on the cake, as Joe said to me. And it's really the last thing that we're concerned about. It's very nice to have. You know, all this fine. But before that, you need to have your wrists. You need to have your arms. And then you work fingers. Okay? And that's a long process. This is, you know, a long-term commitment to do something like this. Now that's basically stone. In a nutshell, how long did it take me? Less than 20 minutes. Yes, it's not very complicated. Not a lot of things in it. It's very basic, very foundational. But it's very extremely functional. It works. It develops a very good even stroke. And it's very versatile, and you can use it in any dynamic situation. And it will work for you. Now, I can add some more information to what I just gave you about what I'm actually doing with the stick and with my hands and that kind of thing. And one of the things you need to know about, you probably heard a lot about this already, but I'm going to go through it again. It's really important. Is that I want to be in balance with the stick, and it's you know, I'm talking about the balance point of the stick, but I'm talking about more than the balance point. But we'll talk about the balance point of the stick first, and then I'll talk about the overall balance of everything, of you. So the stick has a shape, a funny shape. One side is thicker than the other, so the balance point, the center of the mass, or where the weight is equal on both sides, is not in the center of the stick because of the taper and bead and the shank butt shapes. So you need to get back a little further from here. How much further? It depends on the stick and a lot of things, and the taper, how quickly it tapers, how much it tapers, all that kind of stuff. But you'll find that it has a much better response to the rebound if you find the balance point to the stick. I don't want to do my right hand yet. It's the same in the right hand, it's just a different position. Right? If I pass the balance point, I get back here, it gets forward heavy. It doesn't want to respond as well because there's more weight in the front, so it's an uneven, unbalanced stroke. I can explain to you why that is too. If you go forward, you have the opposite problem, and you get back heavy. And it doesn't like the balance because it wants to keep coming up. But if you get right in the middle of the weight, and really you'll get the ultimate balance response. And the whole technique is based on this bouncing thing. So this is what we want to develop. We want to develop the ability to allow the bounce and to be able to control it and use it. Use its energy and direct the motion of the stick without affecting the bounce as much as possible. Now the reason it's like this is because the stick is rotating in a circular motion. I'm bringing physics and Tai Chi and all this other stuff into it now. But the stick wants to rotate in a circular motion. That's what the stick does. It rotates in circular motion. But it's not doing the whole circle. It's doing 90 degrees of it. But the physics are the same with this rotation that it's trying to do. And the other thing, so if you have the same amount of, if you have an uneven amount of weight, let's put all the weight on one side. Now gravity is going to be pulling this down very quickly, so you're going to have a high acceleration on the way down, and gravity is going to be really pulling it, all this mass. As all the mass is extended, it's going to be, so this is like a flywheel effect, which is good for inertia situations, like with a motor, you want to keep the motor going. So you get to the top and it has a big push, and then it has to fight its way back to the top, and it's a very uneven, unbalanced stroke. Now, if I get it to the center, the motion of the stick is now going down at the same time, and the masses are equally going in opposite directions. So as fast as the gravity is pulling down this mass, is as much as this gravity is holding this mass going up. So the stroke becomes the same speed up and down all around. So it gets nice and even instead of inertia heavy, which is great for power, but it's really hard to control to stick that way and work any kind of finesse and use the bounce. You're giving up the idea of bouncing the stick if you get away from the center of the mass, for sure. That's where the best response is because of what I just explained to you. It's the most even stroke, and it takes the least amount of work. And of course, you want to touch the stick as little as possible because you don't want to stop the stick from vibrating either. Head vibrates, cymbals vibrate, everything vibrates, sticks vibrates. If you choke the stick, you choke the vibrations of everything else it touches. Okay, so remember I talked about a general balance too. We have to be in balance as well. So what we need to consider is that our hand also has a mass. So we want to mimic the stick. We want to follow the stick. The better we follow the stick, the more we stay with the stick in terms of speed and direction, the less we have to use pressure to hold on to it so we don't lose it. The further away we are from the center of balance, the more centrifugal forces are going to try to pull us apart from the stick. The more we're going to have to use our own energy to keep the stick in place, and the tighter our grip is going to become. So in order to have a loose grip, you want to be in one with the stick in terms of its motion and its direction and its acceleration. So you have to understand that you want to turn in a circular motion as well. It's even easier if you're playing standard grip. This is even easier because this is a circular motion. I'm going around the stick in a circular motion, whereas this is not. Because you're turning from here, you're not turning from the forearm, you're turning from in here. So we seem to think that it's straight up and down, but it isn't. Because it is a pivot. Everything about our body is a pivot and circle. Circular motion. Circular motion. Everything. So it's the same thing here. So we have to, I'm trying to emulate the circular motion. I'm trying to move in the same way the stick is moving with my hand. And also my hand's got mass. It weighs something too, just like the stick weighs something. So when it turns in a circle, I want to make the center of the mass the center of the turning of my hand. so that my weight is balanced around the rotation of the axis of the circle. It creates the minimum amount of pull, gravity's pull away from the center. So I want to line the center of my, first I want to turn my hand around the center of my weight, and I want to turn the stick around the center of its weight. Right? Because that's the most efficient way to distribute the weight around the rotation, around the center or the fulcrum. And then I want to get the fulcrum of the stick, and it's only the turning point. The fulcrum would be here. But I want the fulcrum, the turning point, to be at the center of the balance point of the stick, and I want the stick to be the center of that balance point, to be in the center of my balance point, so that I can look at my hand and the stick as one unit. It's all one thing, moving as one piece, and it's one weight now. It's not two different masses, it's one mass. The two of them together make a mass, and if I move them in the same direction at the same speed, and keep them together, they act as one physically. And I don't have to hold on very hard once it goes into motion. It's like when you get on a bicycle and you push it off, you sort of let go after a while, as long as you stay in balance. Same thing, as long as they stay in the balance of the rotation, I don't have to grab after the initial energy that I use to get it going. As long as I keep using the rebound, the first one is completely my energy. I'm initiating every stroke. But if I use the rebound, I'm only initiating at the top of the stroke. And a lot of the rebound energy coming back up is being converted back into the downward motion. So, it's like when I'm on a bicycle, I use a lot of upping to get up to a cruising speed. Once I'm in a cruising speed, I just have to touch it lightly on the pedals. And it'll go, as long as I stay in balance with the bike and the motion. So I'm doing the same thing. And there's a balance of rotation, trying to keep the weight of the stick in the center of the rotation, and my weight around the stick, around the center of rotation. So everything's in the center, and I'm rotating here. So I'm creating as little centrifugal force as possible. And also, I'm rotating back in here. I'm not using a forward fulcrum back out here. I'm using an index, a middle finger fulcrum. And I'm only touching it very lightly. I'm using a lot of air. Left hand, I'm turning this way. And same thing, I'm using a lot of air. I'm not using my thumb though. You can understand that. I'm not doing this. I'm not even doing this yet. I might do that later. If I use fingers, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to do this. Well, right now, all I want to do is turn my hand. So that it's the weight of my hand around the stick, centered. And if I can't get my weight around evenly, if I pull my thumb back a little bit, this creates more inertia because it's further away from the center, and it counteracts the heavier weight on the bottom that's closer. There's more physics involved that I won't get involved telling you about now. But I'm really balancing the weight and distance, using the distance to balance the weight as well. I'm just moving my hand up and down, just the way I'm moving this hand up and down. Letting the stick come back. When I'm doing it full stroke though, I have to really open it up. I'm just using the very tip of my index finger, my left hand. Let's see, let me turn it. No, that's just. See that? I'm just using the very tip from here. So it's wide open. And then as it's coming down, I'm pulling it into the fulcrum. So I get a nice tight around the fulcrum. So my fingers really look like this as I'm coming down. Pulling them in and down. And the index finger into the top of the fulcrum, and the other fingers are tucking underneath, and then coming back up on a full stroke like that. Of course, if I'm doing multiples, then I can stay down and just do this with the stick, as long as I'm using the return. But if I want to catch it, I have to pull my fingers up to make sure it doesn't fall down and keep it up there. I'm playing constantly. I'm just trying to get with my index finger at the top of my index finger. But if I want to stop, I have to catch it. If I throw one, I can throw one. I can throw two and catch it. Throw three, catch it four. So it looks like this. Okay. But it's all in balance. My hands are rotating the way the stick wants to rotate, and I'm rotating the stick in its balance point, and I'm putting the stick's balance point in the center of my hand's weight and rotating my hand the same way in my hand's balance point. I'm trying to think of the stick and my hand as being one unit, one piece of mass. And then I calculate the center of that mass of the two of them together, and that's what should be rotating. My whole hand and the whole stick in the center of the mass. And the rest of it is George. We're using the levels and the rebound and the control strokes and the free strokes. That's basically it. It's not, well, science gets involved, and there's a little bit of Tai Chi with, trying to keep the stroke very evenly, even at the slow tempos, to keep the tempos, get the stroke to pass slowly through all of the space. So you really have to learn how to do this very slowly, so you learn how to move with the stick. When you speed it up, the power comes in because it's the speed that gives you the energy. But I'm not looking for speed or energy, I'm looking for control and balance. That's what I added to the physics viewpoint, a little bit of the Tai Chi discipline, slow stroking, rotational viewpoints of motion, which changed the formulas I was looking at from Newton, from translational formulas to rotational dynamic formulas. But basically that's it. And then from here, when you get very fluid with your arms and you can accent and you have good endurance, and then we can start talking about adding the upper arms, forearms and upper arms to your accent stroke without changing what's going on with the wrist, just adding extra mass and extra momentum from the motion of your arms to what your wrists have already learned to do. It augments the wrists greatly, adding a lot more mass to what the wrists have, and a tremendous amount of momentum that the wrist can gain without getting out of a playing position. And that would be the next step, is to add demonstrated. But I'm not sure this is George Stone. After going through this, I would the up and the down sort of meld together. It's easy to see them when you do it slow. The faster you play them, the closer they get until they become one motion. Just like this is separated. The faster you do them, the closer they come to being one motion. Eventually it's one motion. This is separated because I'm using two hands. On one hand, I can't separate. That happens when you're accenting. So I can't separate the up and down when it gets really fast. I sort of hit a wall in terms of how fast I can move. So then we start adding what a lot of people call molar. What Joe explained to me was the whip. I don't think he got this from Stone. So the up and the down becomes one motion, and it begins up here. Now it becomes possible to play a lot louder and a lot faster. But you need to have your wrists together before you can add your arms in. Otherwise, you're going to be missing a whole area of dynamics if you don't incorporate and integrate your arms into what the wrists are doing and you haven't developed your wrists fully. So you have to develop your wrists first and then you're going to add the arms to it. And then after a while you get good with your arms and the tempos get so fast that it really becomes impossible to play without some assistance from your fingers, and we learn how to integrate the fingers into the process to help, again, to assist the wrists. Not to replace the wrist, but to assist the wrist. That's how I approach it. I take George's method and I added a little bit of meditation, slow movement, rotational thinking, rotational dynamics, and put that together with what Joe showed me, which I think he got from Mr. Sepchik. I think showed him the arm motion, the whip, what he calls the whip motion. And I also think he got some stuff from Billy Gladstone. When he came to New York, finally, he did go to Billy Gladstone and saw Billy for a while, and must have gotten some stuff he incorporated as well into his teaching. And I really can't isolate what that would be. But that's basically the method. First you develop wrists, and you develop full strokes and at different levels. Then you can develop control strokes and learn how to change your levels to play dynamically. And then you learn how to use your forearms and upper arms for additional tools. And ultimately you learn how to add your fingers in at the higher tempos for finesse and sensitivity. And that's it. And today was a short one, but that's about it. I mean, there's not much more to convey than that. Of course, it's very easy to convey it easily in one lesson. It's really 6 months or 2 years or 5-year journey, depending on how you want to do it and how deeply you want to go. I've been doing it for several decades, and I'm not anywhere near done. But that's a choice that you need to make personally, how far you want to take this. Because you can take it as far as you want to take it. As long as you want to put work in, you'll get skill and ability back for the work. And you can reach a point where you got what you need, and you can just maintain it with a small amount of warming up each day or whatever, just to maintain what you have. Well, you can continue your journey and see how far you can take it. It's up to you. to be a great player doesn't require this skill at all. It's very helpful to you and helping you express yourself and get a good sound and help your time and feeling. But it's not necessary to have this kind of skill to be a great player. That's something that comes from the heart and from the ears. And if that's what you expect out of this, I have to discourage you to say that, you need to look elsewhere if you want to be a great player. But this is a very helpful tool to assist you at getting there. Okay? But not the only tool. Just one of the things you need to look at to be a well-rounded, musician. Anyway, I'm gonna cut it short now. I really don't have much else to say on this topic, other than to do 3 or 4 hours of practicing for you to show you how I do it. But that's it. And when you take lessons, you don't get all this information at one time. You go through it with the teacher as your developmental level requires. So it really is up to you in terms of how quickly you can absorb this, how well you focus, how much time you have to spend, and how much of that time you actually use in terms of your pace and how quickly you'll go through this material. But that's basically the outline of the material, and I hope that I gave you somewhat of a picture of what George was teaching and what those exercises in stick control and accents and rebounds were meant to support in terms of practice material. So, thanks for watching, and I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to tell you again that the only way to get this stuff is to practice it a lot. So you just keep practicing, and